Yep, I saw it.
Yeah. So you're at the airport right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're live, by the way.
I see that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So you're at the airport right now. Going where? Where are you going to? You're not going back to Charleston. You're going back. You're going Chicago?
Charleston.
Charlotte. Sorry. I don't know. You could go to Charleston.
In January, we'll go to Charleston.
There we go. Yeah, I wasn't off. I said at least a city that you're going to.
Several months down the road. No, yeah, I'm going to Chicago today. Spend a few days with some friends and family there before going over to Pit Teen Throwdown.
Yeah. And where's the Pit Teen Throwdown at? It's in Michigan.
Three Rivers, Michigan. I'll drive over there. I think it's similarly to Cedar City, Utah. I think it's not the easiest place to get to.
Yeah. I remember when I went there a couple years ago, what 2020 was that 2020 that I went? I just remember a lot of construction. Year? I believe it was 2020, yeah. Right? Or 2019.
Did you drive from St. Louis?
I drove from St. Louis. It was an easy drive. It took me through Indiana. I went through Fort Worth, and then it's like, I don't know. It's like
you went through Fort Wayne, Fort Worth, Texas.
Dude, it was a long night last night. I had my fantasy football draft, and it was with all my high school buddies, and we've been doing this draft for 15 years now. Yeah, 15-year draft. And it was at my buddy. He has an awesome man cave. And we were just there, and the draft ended at like 11, but I didn't leave his house till like 2:30 in the morning. Because one of our buddies from high school, he is the brewmaster for Anheuser-Busch. So, like, he's one of the brewmasters. And
so you guys had a couple of beers available?
A couple of them. I mean, he does this every year. He brings beers that no one's ever had, and he uses us to test dummies.
Oh, damn. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like, he was the first one that told me when they bought like Shock Top and Blue Moon, and I'm a big fan of those. And he's like, "Oh, you should try this." So he was like showing me like the new flavors and everything. He brought them over. But last night, I actually got him because I brought over some Crush Wells that I had left over. Yeah, I had some Crush Wells left over.
Dude, I never even saw those.
Yeah, they're in the camper the whole time.
I didn't go there.
No, you didn't go to the camper at all.
You're holding out on me.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, they're really good. And then I gave them to Rob. And he, part of his job is tasting beer. He's a brewmaster, so it's like he has to taste beer essentially every day. And he's like, "Oh, this is really good." So, and he stood there just looking at the can for the longest time, trying to figure out, like, I'm like, "Dude, don't steal any of that stuff. That's some stuff." He's like, "No." I'm just like, I'm really, like this. And then a couple of my other buddies, they liked it too. So hopefully I can send some business to Crushwell. But anyways,
nice. I stayed up late. I stayed up late hanging out with Kotler last night.
Oh God, how long did you guys talk?
I don't know, 12:30 or something.
Yeah. Justin and his wife Ashley, I could talk days with them. It's just so much fun. And you're just not even talking about CrossFit, just like you could just talk about anything with Justin. Justin might be the most interesting man in CrossFit,
Oh, some people would take exception to that, but yeah, he's a great dude. And they were kind of last minute. I asked him if I could stay there last night instead of stressing getting to the airport this morning. And they were super gracious and said, of course. So that was really nice of them.
Did he cook for you?
No, I wasn't really. We had eaten kind of on the way, so I just had a sparkling water or something, took a shower, and then just hung out for several hours.
Yeah. You said, so you're in Vegas airport right now. Where are you coming from? You're stop 2 of the tour, and where was stop 2 of the tour at?
Yep, Iron Games, Cedar City, Utah.
And for those that know, there's a live telecast of that, and it's amazing that you have your voice, because you did play-by-play and announcing color, just about everything for every division there. for 3 days.
Yeah, well, the first day they had a cool event that was outdoors. It was the Iron Cup. It was not. We didn't broadcast that. There's a recap on Instagram that Tommy Marquez and Adrian Conway did to kind of talk about what that experience was. It was, I would say, overall, all of the individuals in every division and all of the team members in every division did the workout as an individual. And the best time was like 50 minutes, and the slowest times were well over an hour. So it was a pretty brutal and daunting, first task. And we actually did half of the workout, a bunch of the staff, later in the day. I did it actually while everyone was doing it. I just kind of jumped in and started running around the track and picked up a sandbag and did some stuff. So we didn't broadcast that event, but then there was Thursday afternoon broadcast, Friday all day, and Saturday all day. And it kind of came together late on and last minute. There's a guy named Feliz from Belgium who he owns I think he owns Cairo Scoring and Functional Vision. Functional Vision is a YouTube channel where the live stream was broadcast. And
two A's and functional.
And he, I was put in touch with him. 2 weeks before, maybe from the Brigham and Laws and some of the other organizers there. We had, I was planning to go there anyway. We weren't entirely sure what it was going to look like or what we were going to do. We had some different plans. This guy was coming over. Michael Winworth from Competition Corner was there, and they integrated all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, bring a headset. We're going to get you set up. We're going to do a live broadcast. And I was like, oh, okay. So showed up. He had a sweet setup there. You might have been able to see on Instagram some of the back end that the setup that we were calling it from. Yeah, this is the recap of the Iron Cup, I think. Or no, this is one of the two of them. Miranda's talking over it, but there's another one with Tommy and Adrian that's a little longer. They had a good media team there. Enrique was there. Michael Valentine, Eric, Imam Photo was there. Elizabeth Cox, Heather Weir, who worked with us at the game. So they had a lot of good content coming out. But as far as the broadcast goes, it was totally different than anything I'd done before. I don't think I've ever done. Oh, I did I didn't do like a formal broadcast like that before on my own. I don't really. It's nicer with two people. But in addition to doing that, he had this kind of display. It was like a tablet that was, small, in between the size of a phone and an iPad. And I was able to change all the camera angles myself as I was talking, which was really cool to be able to do. Like, then there's no go-between. I knew what I would want to see or talk about. and then also he showed me how to use the graphics, and I was able to pull up the graphics on my own as well.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember who took a picture, but there was a really cool picture of you. I think it was Kiefer, and it was showing you basically behind your desk, and it had like a huge monitor. And I think Dylan came on the last day. I think you were taking a break, and he was kind of giving a tour, which was really cool, a tour of the whole facility. And it looked like it was a 3-camera was a 3-camera mounted setup.
They had 3 fixed cameras, left, right, and center. Yeah. They had a RoboCam, and there was a little remote, and either Tommy or Dylan, when he wasn't doing MC, was oftentimes controlling that remote cam. And then they had one phone on a gimbal that was on the floor. So we had 5 cameras. There was a studio camera, but we hardly ever used it for, showing like me, I guess. But that was not that necessary to use. So basically 5 cameras and like 3 or 4 people operating the whole thing. We were able to stream, every heat of every division for all the events that were indoors. They had an obstacle course outdoors as well that we didn't live stream. But it was a pretty cool event. Your buddy Paul set up that. It was cool to see him again.
Yeah. And Paul's good. Cool.
And I just, I did a lot of wide shots, zoomed in when we could, but tried to keep a full picture of what was going on in the competition floor. And then, it's kind of my job at a lot of these events to have the big picture idea and not lose sight of anyone or anything. So obviously making sure to identify who's in the lead, who's winning the races in terms of points, podium, etc. Cut line. They had a cut before the final for all the individuals down to 10. So keeping all those things in perspective, but also just, trying to make sure that everyone, who wanted to watch could see the people that they wanted to watch for a majority of the events. So it's just different for me. I had done producing in the truck one time before, but it was with a team that I didn't know much about in Dubai several years ago, and otherwise I'm usually on the floor, or in the booth, and not in charge of any of that stuff, and just kind of at the it's up to the director or whatever to change all those shots. Every director has their own different kind of flair and personality and touch on that. So to do both commentating and change the cameras, which is basically directing, I guess, and then also pull up the graphics. It was a lot, but it was also like a unique and cool experience because we have total control of the story.
Yeah. And I think we've always had these discussions about one reason why the broadcast brings you on is that way you can tell some of these people, the producers, directors, like what shots and who to look out for. So, I guess this is kind of like you getting that opportunity to kind of do it yourself.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, different broadcasts have different opportunities to interact with those people, but then ultimately they go to their stations and I go to mine. And I mean, look, it's not like, there's limitations that come with having only 4 people there. And obviously if a couple more people, we could be a little bit more smooth on some of the transitions and getting the graphics up a little more easily. I was prepping every graphic for the upcoming next heat. So the heat would end, I'd try to be always going on and typing into the graphics bar to say coming up next intermediate men team of 3, or we'll be back at 1:33 p.m. or whatever it was. So just like having the ability to multitask was critical.
I will say, if there's anyone can multitask, it's you. I mean, it looked like that setup. What that setup might have been not too different than what you had at home in terms of your setup there with multiple screens and multiple laptops and stuff. So I think if anyone can figure that out, it was you, and it showed. Like I said, it was a
nice.
great job.
Yesterday, after all the divisions ended before the award ceremonies, I kind of went back in the athlete area for the first time and just wanted to congratulate some of the athletes that had done really well. Underdogs Athletics had a bunch of women competing there. I think 4 of them podiumed, 2 of them won, and I got a chance to talk to some of the podium athletes on the men's side and in the masters division, for both men and women. And I talked to the Salty crew that had a ton. The Salty Hive had a ton of teams there competing and individuals, and all of them were just super grateful. They had all been going back and watching the coverage of their heats or their friends or whatever later on in the evenings. They said that they thought it was one of the best broadcasts they'd ever seen in CrossFit because they could see the whole floor for a majority of the workout. They could actually watch themselves and say, oh man, I thought I was struggling there, but I was actually doing better than most people. Or I thought I only took a small break there, but I was doing nothing for 30 seconds, one of the girls said. And so it's cool to be able to get that feedback. I'm sure that, a lot of the athletes film themselves in the gym and do some of that assessment, but at the live events, especially if you're an intermediate RX, the teams divisions, you don't always get all those, the masters divisions, you don't always get all that coverage. And so you don't have the opportunity to go back and watch it. There were people that, came up to me and they're like, look at this dude. There were a dozen people at my house watching all weekend long. Just they wanted me to try to find you and say thank you for doing that. So it's always nice to get that kind of feedback from the athletes.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I was listening or watching probably the whole weekend. Even when I was out working and shooting yesterday, I had it on my phone and I just had it in my pocket listening. But you even without watching it and just listening, you're painting a really good picture of what's going on. And I think that's something very unique that only a few people in the industry can do. And obviously the other people that can do it are they do broadcasting, and you are still relatively new in broadcasting. I don't know, just transitioning from just, I guess we can kind of go back to if there's more you want to talk to, but I kind of want to maybe talk about the competition itself and recap the competition. Obviously we'll start with the elite women, because I mean, coming into it, we found out Chloe Wilson, who is a just member of the demo team from 2 years ago at the CrossFit Games. Just missed the games two years in a row. She was pretty much like the premier athlete of the. I mean, there's great athletes there, but she was kind of the athlete that people were expecting.
Yeah, I mean, in the elite women's side, she was the only athlete that was at semifinals this year. Obviously, she's been in semifinals 3 consecutive years. She's been close to making the games each of those years. So she came in as the definite favorite. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she had a fight. She had a fight for it.
Absolutely. For a majority of the weekend, both Ava George and Michaela Vancura were, giving her a run for her money. When it ultimately it ended up coming down to Chloe and Ava, and Chloe's is very strong. The final workout had barbell cycling and some legless and regular rope climbs. The legless rope climbs in particular is something that Ava, who's a younger athlete, has been working on. She, I think she's better at them than she's ever been before, but Chloe was still better at those and better with the barbell in general. So she ended up winning by a little bit more on the points gap than the race felt like all weekend long.
Yeah, because I think going into that last event, I think Ava had a 4-point lead, and it was basically when whoever beat each other won the event, and Chloe kind of pulled away there at the end.
Yeah, and the points gaps throughout the course of the weekend, they were variable, and when they cut down to 10, it was 16-point gaps in each of the placings. So you see that she won there by however many points it was, and she
36.
It wasn't like she won by 36, so she made up. I guess she must have. She had a 4-point lead. Chloe had a 4-point lead going into the final, and then she beat her by 2 spots to extend the lead from 4 to 36. That's how that happened. So 32 of those points were made up by 2 places in the final.
Yeah,
but it was great.
It was good.
Yeah, Ava George is obviously you work with Ava and have been aware of her for a long time. Probably a lot of people are not as aware of her, but she's 20. Was she 21 now?
No, she just turned 20 in March, I believe.
Okay, so super young athlete with obviously a tremendous base of fitness, and this is these are the types of athletes that when I'm going on this tour, I guess, on these trips to learn more about. And Michaela Vancura, same thing. She had a pretty impressive several events this weekend. In the middle of the competition, especially, she was doing quite well.
2 event wins.
Yeah, she won the ring muscle ups, 22 reps in 5 minutes. Then she won the obstacle course, which is a athleticism thing. She was second on the push up with the handstand, with the hand release push ups and kettlebell deadlifts, and then she was third or second on the final as well. So she's very, very good at the gymnastics and athleticy type stuff. But she was similarly to Ava, she was within 20 or 30 spots of making a semifinal this year. So just another athlete to kind of be aware of. I mean, at some point this offseason, I'll do power rankings going into next year, but kind of right now, I don't feel any rush to do that because we talked about it after Finland, and we're talking about it here. There's some athletes out there. There's some athletes competing in Metcon Rush this weekend as well that I have my eye on. That they might not have made a semifinal this year, or they might not have done great at semifinals, but they are doing the competition circuit. They're having some good results, and I'm trying to keep all of those athletes in mind. So probably later in the season, I'll do that power rankings for next year and have a pretty robust, maybe 200 athletes deep on both sides.
Anything? Obviously, you brought up the point that I kind of do know Ava. She's someone that's I don't know. I just think she's obviously a superstar, and not to go on a tangent about her and talk about how awesome I think she is, but this is the first time you got to see her in live competition. And she only has really 2 live competitions under her belt. Before this, she did her first elite competition she ever did was Can West Games, and then she did the Pit Teen Fitness Ranch, or Pit Teen Fitness Throwdown last year, and that was the last competition she did live in person. And she's kind of been, retooling herself. She moved out to Vegas, joined the Underdogs family, and has been coached by Kiefer. And I was very impressed by her. What did you see from her? What's the future look like for her this upcoming season? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with Kiefer and Ava, and they both feel like they've made a lot of progress in the last year since that last competition that they did. She said that, 6 to 12 months ago, there's a few workouts here this weekend, in particular with some of the gymnastic stuff that she wouldn't have done as well on. And, I think she's got a lot of, she still has a lot of room for upward trajectory. I think she's we'll have to see what the CrossFit Games season looks like next year, but if it's anything similar to this year, I think there's a very good chance that we'll see her at a semifinal next year. And depending how the landscape of those shakes out, she could be possibly, 20 to 30, 20s to 30s in a semifinal next year. I think she's got that kind of potential, even for just another 8 to 9 months from now. And obviously being young, some athletes get to that level and plateau, and some athletes continue to move forward. But right now, she's definitely moving up.
Yeah. And what did you see from Chloe this year? That I think it was Tommy on Talking Fitness. He interviewed her, and she said she made a change. She quit her job as a full-time firefighter to basically go all in for this next coming year. And then she also changed training camps, and for the last 2 weeks, she just started with Training Think Tank. So I wasn't sure I'm pretty sure you're aware of that, but what do you see?
Well,
What did you see there?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Tommy's interview with her. It was great to get some insight into what she's doing. I mean, people who know Chloe and who are really in tune with or are really in tune with the CrossFit Games season know that she's been on the fringe of making it to the games for a few years, and she's not it's not like she's too old to make it. Like, she still has a great chance and a huge base of fitness. But like I just said, in this sport, certain athletes can get so far and then they kind of plateau. And the question is, if that happens to you, whatever level that is, what choice are you going to make? For some, it's like they set a timeline. They're like, okay, I got 2 years, and if I can't break through in 2 years, then I got to give this up. And for others, it's like, okay, and we talk about this with regards to coaches or training camps. Like, how long is too long to stay with a coach or a training camp, or how short is too short to give someone a realistic chance to make a change? I feel like for 3 years running now, she's been pretty much at the same level relative to the competition that she's going against in an attempt to get to the games. And I was expecting her this year in the off season, or what I would expect from someone who has that resume and that experience over a 2 to 3 year period of time, to do one of two things: is to either mail it in and move on with their life in a different pursuit, or to make a change and say, if something doesn't change, nothing's going to change. And so, the fact that she's made that decision to double down on the fitness that she knows she has and the potential that I think a lot of people see in her, including me. Training Think Tank is a pretty well established and organized and professional coaching base and group of people. I don't know if they reached out to her or if she sought out a couple of different people, had conversations. But when you make a decision like that, I think it's important to have confidence in it and to have a belief that that can be the thing that is missing, or the thing that she's needed to take that next step. I don't know, it's always hard to say, between when the semifinals ended and now, how much focus has she been putting on into getting into competition shape. But I think she had only one finish outside the top 4, and it was on the event that I would put the least emphasis on, the obstacle course being a little bit of a wild card of event. Obviously, you might see something like that at the games, but outside of that, it's a pretty unique thing to see. And you can certainly have athletes in a field who might never challenge you on anything in the gym that can just be really good at something like that. So it just was a lot of balance and agility. And but this competition, besides the 2 outdoor events, and even in the outdoor events, it seemed like it really paid off to be strong. And she was the strongest female in the field there. You see that she won the overhead squat event. She was the best with the deadlift in the penultimate event on Saturday. And on the men's side, when we flip over there, we'll see the same thing. It was the strongest guy in the field that ended up winning.
Yes. No, just yeah, what you said about Chloe, those are some big changes for any athlete. I believe she's 26 years old, so she still has, but it's kind of that year. Those years are kind of like those are usually the years that women or any athlete kind of like I'm going for broke here, because if they don't make it,
I would say 26, 7, 8 is like that's the pinnacle. Like if you can't get through by that, it's not impossible. We saw some people this year, even in their 30s, like Jake Douglas, for example. I know there were a couple others. Mikkel Wazalowski, I think, is close to 30 that were making to the games for the first time. And obviously, there are athletes that are in their 30s that are still competitive. But if you don't have that breakthrough by that time, then it's often hard to do it, at least in the elite field. And I don't know. I think Chloe Wilson is, quite frankly, I think that she's got as good a chance as a lot of other women to make the games next year, and especially if she's kind of making a commitment to make that a priority. The one thing is the challenge when you do that is, making sure not to burn yourself out. Like there still has to be a balance. You still have to, I think we've seen this from some athletes, like you still have to have some fun in your life. You still have to have some rest days. You still can't, you can't just be training 10 hours a day, every day for 300 days. It's going to catch up to you at some point. But I think doing a couple off-season competitions, getting some confidence, getting some experience, having a new environment to, refine and hone in on some skills. Look at Katrin David's daughter. She's good and great as she's ever been. She made a change this year. I got a chance to train with her and talk to some of her coaches, and they worked on some really specific things, minor tweaks and changes, even with regards to like breathing patterns in specific movements that were able to kind of get her back into the mix. So I think I think that if you're a Chloe Wilson fan, or if you're Chloe Wilson, this is like a really positive change, really optimistic for her for this year.
Can't wait to see. Let's move on to the elite men. Sorry. A name right here. This actually went down to the last event as well, right?
Yeah. Drake Lewis and Andres Stearns were exchanging the lead almost event for event the entire weekend long. And they're both, in my opinion, are kind of well-established semifinal athletes. They're guys that can threaten for podiums in competitions like this. Whether it's, Drake in particular has a bunch of second place finishes. He was second place at Iron Games the last 2 years. He was second place at Wadapalooza RX Division last January. Andres Stearns was fourth at the Fittest Experience also last January. And I kind of, Logan Ewing was in this field. I thought he might be in the mix. He had to withdraw due to injury, but I thought that those were kind of the three guys. And with Logan out, it ended up being Drake and Andres. Drake's local to the area. He's competed at the Iron Games every single year, which I think is awesome. And
5 years.
And not having I never like to have favorites or someone that I'm rooting for, whatever. But coming into the competition, when I looked at his resume there, I was like, it would be nice for this guy to get the win there. He's been loyal to that competition. He's obviously super fit. He's been second the last 2 years. If I had to pick someone that I would say it'd be great for him to win, he was the guy that I thought it would be great for. But he only had a 16-point lead going into the final. There were 16 points between first and second. So, if Andres was able to beat him there and one other guy came in between, that would have done the job. Drake had the tiebreak with more event wins over the course of the weekend. I think either way, 5 event wins as you see there. And again, he was, like I said, he was the strongest guy in the field. He had the win on the overhead squat. He had the win on the ring muscle ups. He had the win on the deadlifts. He had the win on the final that involves, legless rope climbs and hang squat snatches at 165. And I think one other win. But he, I talked to him after. He's a super nice guy. And he was just, grateful to be able to get it done this year.
Yeah, you said it. It's very similar to women's race where you had one person that won a lot of events, like Drake won 5, and I think Chloe won 4, and then who came second, just like Andres,
very
just
consistent.
like Ava. Yeah, just consistent. No event wins. He had 0 event wins, 7 top 5 finishes out of, I believe, 8 scored events. And
only the muscle ups. He was not in the top 5.
similar to Ava. I think Ava actually had top fives in all the events. Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, to stay
And I
that
talked to
close.
and I talked to Andres, and he said that he's working a lot outside of training, and so he didn't
Mhm.
like I think he said that I don't know that I've trained like I've put in the training to deserve to win, but I came here wanting to win, something like that. And
Yeah,
I mean, he was still incredibly impressive. He was, they were clearly the two best guys there. And it was super fun. Like you go to these events and you never know if it's just going to be a blowout or if it's going to be, you know, whatever. But in this case, that both of the elite divisions came down to the final event, and it was that close throughout. It was pretty exciting, and it's good to see because you see the athletes kind of like raise the level of each other.
yeah. And one thing about these I guess regional events, or however you want to call these tiered events, is that you don't see that many professional athletes in terms of athletes that do it full time. I mean, we just talked about Chloe. Chloe was a full time firefighter until just recently, and now she's going all in. You don't see that. Most of them have jobs and careers. So what you're seeing is a lot of people who are just like everyday people who don't put in, who can't because they need to make a living off doing other things.
I wonder what Justin Lee's job is.
I don't know either. You mean DR?
Yeah, no, and I mean, we'll just mention Justin Lee. He's a cool guy. He came over from Minnesota. You see CrossFit Minnetonka there. He trains a lot with Nick Matthew. Goes head to head with him on a lot of workouts. Yeah, he won the Iron Cup, that 54 minutes on the opening workout, and then he won the push-ups and Sumo high pulls. He also, I think, did pretty well on the muscle ups. There, 27, and with the legless row climbs and squat snatches at the end, deadlifts and handstand walking. So he's a pretty. I mean, he was pretty fit. He's a pretty impressive specimen. He told me he'd like tore his quad sometime in the last couple of years, so he knew he was going to bomb the overhead squat. Who knows what happened on the obstacle course? But cool, really nice guy, incredible physique, good competitor, and it's cool. Like at these small events, we talked about it with Finland, trying to get some more international presence there. And Iron Games also has ambitions to grow. So to have athletes that travel across the country to come to a place that's not that easy to get to is pretty cool. So it's great to have him there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a doctor too. So I mean, if he's single, I think he's the whole package right there. One thing about Drake is you said that this is the 5th year that he's competed there. That means he started competing there when he's 19, because Drake is only 24 years old. So,
Drake Lewis is an interesting dude. I mean, 325-pound overhead squat for 3 from the floor. That's insane. And let's see how that stacks up, because the Rogue qualifiers, they have a 3-rep overhead squat from the rack, right?
From the rack.
I'm curious how this 325 from the floor is going to stack up on that leaderboard. And by the way, Andres Stearns is listed at 300. He attempted 320. I mean, those guys are freakishly strong. That's pretty impressive. And I think there's a video of Drake Lewis doing that on Iron Games Instagram, and it's worth a watch. It's like, I don't think there are a lot of guys out there that can get 325 from the ground overhead and maintain that for 3 overhead squats. So he's a super strong dude, pretty young. Obviously got a lot of talent with the gymnastic stuff as well. He looked really good on the legless rope climbs, great on the ring muscle ups. But he's another guy that's like got some potential. We'll see what the next couple of years look like for him, but don't be surprised if that's a name that you hear, at a semifinal, sneaking into an elite Wadapalooza field or something like that.
We'll kind of quickly go through some of the other divisions. Team RX female, we have 801 Dogs with the win. They look, that's obviously a local team, I believe, from the area in Utah. 5 event wins.
That was a bummer. This division was tied between the Dogs and the Salty Savages going into the final, and one of the girls on Salty Savages got injured in the final. They had to finish it with 2 people. So it's kind of a sad situation, because it was a great battle all weekend long. You look and see how far ahead of the rest of the division they were there. And even when the Dogs crossed the finish line, they were happy to win, but it reminded me a little of Adler, where it's like I wanted to win because I knew I was better, not because my opponent got injured.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, it just seemed like a 2-team race there. RX men. No surprise. Go ahead.
Yeah, on the men's team side of things, I mean, I didn't know any of the other teams coming in. I was certainly open-minded to someone challenging these guys, but I know Justin and Jordan quite well.
Yep.
Justin's the owner of Salty Hive. Jordan's been on several teams at the games over the years. When he used to train at Salt Lake City CrossFit, and Cord Simpson I met this weekend. They won 7 of the 8 events and got second on one of them. They were very impressive relative to the field, and I think, well, this guy Jordan Baratarian, he is so incredibly strong in the workout with deadlifts. He was cycling 365 for reps, 405. It was ridiculous how easy he was making this stuff look. And then in the team overhead squat, both him and Justin put up numbers that were just insane. So these guys were incredibly strong, incredibly impressive, and clearly the best team there.
I remember the first time I was introduced to Jordan, it was actually you brought my attention to him at the West Coast Classic, and he was on a team there. And it was, what was it? It was a snatch and clean event that they did, and we were sitting there watching because he was, I think, in the front, and Stephen Wallace, his team was in the back, and so you had 2 stronger guys in CrossFit, and it was kind of fun to watch. And I just remember bringing my attention to him, and just, he's a big dude to begin with, but he moved that barbell around like it was nothing.
Yeah. So, and like I mentioned, Salty Hive had a huge contingency of athletes competing there, and they got first in the teams of 3, second in the teams of 3 women. So.
Any other divisions you want to highlight? RX women, I think it was one of the bigger divisions in terms of participation, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really know Jenna McVie too well. I met her this weekend. Same with Michelle Young. I had heard of Kendall. She's young and trains there with Underdogs. I don't know if Jenna's in Vegas or where she trains, but
she's not. She lives in Ohio, and but she follows Underdogs programming. No, this is good for someone like Jenna.
Yeah, and look at how close the battle was there. It was a great. It was actually Jenna. I think she. I don't remember, something on the last day she might have pulled ahead a little bit, but it was, I think, going into the final, it was between her and Kendall. We're still like a winner take all scenario, and Kendall just struggled a little bit with the barbell. So yeah, but fun race, deep division. Yeah, the RX divisions had more athletes in them than the elite divisions, which is pretty common. So great job for Jenna.
Yeah, I think probably the highlight for me though, out watching this division was the I think it was the which event was it? Thin to Herd, when Sabrina, who we both know Sabrina, she was out there by herself, and she basically she was in that 11th spot, and fighting with her teammate Marley Manning, who's out of Underdog. She trains out there out at CrossFit Rhino, and she had the whole floor to herself, and she basically had to compete to get in, and it was very impressive watching that. And I think that was kind of the highlight for me. And then she made a top 10 for someone like Sabrina. That's a pretty cool accomplishment.
Yep, absolutely. It was, they only took 10 to the final. There were a lot of athletes in the just outside that had a good performance, but it wasn't good enough. But for Sabrina, it was, and so she got to do the last event. So great accomplishment for her. Yes.
Yeah. And then Kendall, you addressed her. She's good. She has one more year in the team division, and she's also another athlete that Kiefer trains. I think at this point, if you're out in the West Coast, you're pretty much getting trained by Kotler or Kiefer. But if one of those guys contacts you, you're a legit athlete. But Kendall, he's been high on someone like Kendall for a while. She just missed out. Obviously, I think the team division would have took 20 as opposed to 10, she probably would have made the games. She is a type of athlete that doesn't have that top end strength right now, but she's known for her engine. As you can see, she did really well in the Iron Cup. Was one of those few athletes, finished second, 52 minutes. And again, she's just
big engine, good gymnastics, and I'm sure she'll only get stronger. So yeah, she's a good one to keep an eye on for the next couple of years if she sticks with it.
Yeah, and Manning, who just missed out, I believe she's 17 as well. So a competition like this, competing against some women, it's some grown women. I think Jenna is in her late 20s, mid 30s maybe. But
I think
this
she's
is
in her
this.
I think she's like 33 or 4.
Yeah,
Which is twice
doesn't show it at all.
twice as old as those girls. No, not at all.
Yeah,
But it was that's like, and it's cool that you can have someone who is that 33 or whatever and 17 and battling it out, and that's what this sport produces sometimes.
Yeah, and I think they all were sharing an Airbnb together too, so that's kind of fun. And then I guess we go to RX Men. Looks like it was kind of a one person race out of here. Only 2 event wins, but very very consistent.
Yep, don't know Hiram too well, but he didn't really give much away, and he was clearly the best guy in that division.
Yeah, Hiram, 27 years old, 5'5". He's listed as 5'5", 140. So I don't know if that's right, but
I would. He may be an inch taller than that. He definitely weighs more than that, but he's he was one of the smaller guys out there. Yes.
And then there's 4 other divisions. I believe Masters women, men, intermediate women, and men.
I'll just say this: the Masters women division only had 4 athletes in it. 3 of them were competing for the first time in their first ever competition. So that was pretty.
Awesome. Yeah. Brian is in the airport right now, so it's a long announcement.
Yeah, and so I was talking to some of them yesterday after the competition, and they said 3 of the 4 of them were competing for the first time, and hopefully there'll be some more women and men in the Masters age categories that will sign up for this next year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been going 5 years. It's actually the first B.Friendly certified event. I saw they even had some B certified signage there. And made me think, yep, you bring it home. Stop 2 of the tour. And speaking of which, CJ off topic. So,
thank you,
shout out
CJ.
to you, Brian. Yeah. And obviously, like we discussed, there was the Iron Games brought in some just heavy hitters when it came to event organizers. Can you talk about like just that in terms of like you had Dylan there, you had Jared there. There was just
Jared Graybill was running the competition floor, the main arena. Dylan Nowitzki, Noah Dean, Britt Ringstrom, Mike Otzman were emceeing. Miranda Predis was running the social media. Adrian Conway did the programming. Obviously, Brigham Nelson and Laws Casper running the competition. Competition corner was there with Michael. And I feel like I'm forgetting. Tommy came out there for most of the competition. Offers his support. He has competed there in the past. He knows Brigham and Laws quite well. For a competition that was kind of out there a ways, there were, like you said, quite a few significant and big, personalities in the space that made the trip and helped to make hopefully a really great experience for the athletes on site. And, with the opportunity that Feliz from Kairos on Functional Vision came in and he went above and beyond of what he was expected and needed to do. And we were able to hopefully, convey the message of the Iron Games 2023 to the people who wanted to watch online as well.
Yeah, you brought it up early. You brought up Paul. Paul, people don't know Paul. Paul is he's not involved as he used to be, but me and him actually started judging together. He was a big part of the judging community, and then he kind of branched off and he started his own obstacle racing company out there in Arizona in Page. And he's now a father and married and everything. So, but he every year, that's the one event he always makes a point to do, and it was only fitting that he was in charge of creating the obstacle course because he has all that stuff. And then one more person I think you should bring up is the judging. They brought in some pretty good judges too. They brought in a guy from your neck of the woods, I guess formerly your neck of the woods, a real good friend of mine too. And they had some other veteran judges, like game level judges there as well.
They did, yeah. Kevin is the guy I think you're talking about. He was kind of overseeing
course.
everything on that side of thing, and then Tom was out there, head judge, and there were a few guys. There were men and women judging that do have a lot of high level competition experience as well. So it's obviously these competitions require a lot of volunteers to make them happen, and those people are just as important to the production and the flow day in and day out. If you were watching the stream at all, you would see, as soon as something finished up, they were on the floor making the changes, resetting, and getting ready for the next one, and that's happening all competition long. First Form came out there. I got to meet the guys from First Form for the first time. Really nice guys, hardworking. Tier had a booth there. So, I didn't go to Vendor Village too often. Black Rifle Coffee, I think, was involved.
Nice.
So, some sponsors as well that are familiar for sure.
Yeah. But if you haven't, go to the Iron Games Instagram page, give them a follow, watch. They had a lot of great content. I can't wait to see some of the other content they're putting out. You mentioned the content creators that they had. It should be some pretty cool stuff that's coming out of this. So want to send a thank to the organizers of the Iron Games for having us, and we hope to be involved with them next year and maybe some future things on the road. But you're at the airport right now. You're heading to Chicago, like we said before. You got stop three of the tour, and we have you are going to Michigan, and you're going to be for the first time attending the Pit Teen Throwdown. You've been invited in the past. I went there the first year. I know you were invited a couple years in the past, but because of your schedule, you weren't able to attend. But this year, yeah, you're there.
Yeah, I'm excited to go there. And again, things are kind of escalating late in the proceedings, so it's going to be once again. It's not this like premier Wadapalooza Dubai event. It is one of the premier events, if not the premier event for the teenage athletes, and in this case, they're also extending to the collegiate division, which is available for athletes 18 to 22 years old to participate in. I'm really excited about that. I think it's a great idea and a very needed addition to the general competition landscape, because we know how difficult it is once you graduate from the teenage division to make it in the elite division. So this is a cool opportunity for athletes in that age range. But there's going to be, we're going to have, again, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there's going to be some version of a broadcast there as well. Joel Gadet is coming. So Joel and Gadet, who, apart from Sean Woodland, was the only other play-by-play guy to work at the games this year. And I will be doing the broadcast. I don't know if we'll do every heat of every division for every day. There's one of the athletes' fathers is actually a professional broadcaster, he works on the back end of professional broadcasting, and he's bringing some equipment out to get us set up. So I think that once again, this is going to be kind of picking up steam last minute, and hopefully be another great opportunity to showcase another group of event organizers in Stephanie Price and Brock Yost, who are extremely passionate about providing a great experience for the community that they serve.
Yeah, and Joel's been involved since day one. It's pretty cool. My first year there, they actually they brought out a bunch of RVs because I don't know if you know this. Apparently, that area, it's like the RV capital of the world or something like that. But they brought out a bunch of RVs, and they made an RV they gave an RV just for the media team, and it was pretty cool because that's actually when I got to really get to know Joel really well. And but he's been involved from day one there, and he does a great job with it. And he has obviously an extensive knowledge of these athletes, because some of these athletes that you're talking about, the collegiate division, their first competition, they started there as a teen division. So looking at some of the women on this list, Nadia, I think she was there in 2020 competing as a team. And this women, there's some familiar names here. Paige, Maggie Paran is definitely one that sticks out to me. I got a chance to talk to her. She was competing just before the games at the Monster Comp, and she's really excited about this competition. And I believe that's when you asked me to talk about the college division. She was one of those athletes that said, I think the collegiate division for athletes between 18 and 22 is a great idea, and she wished that more competitions would have a division like this. And it's showing. Obviously, it's showing because this is the larger this is the largest division of all the other ones in terms of registrations.
Yep, no qualification process for this. They were just able to sign up for it. And you know, this will be the third of 4 consecutive weeks that I'm doing a broadcast. It's obviously not like feasible to prepare an intimate amount of knowledge about all of the athletes and all of the divisions at all of these competitions. However, for the Pit Teen Throwdown, they do a really good job of gathering information through a survey from the athletes. And like you said, Joel has quite a bit of knowledge and experience with these, having called some age groups at the games and worked with Pit Teen Throwdown in the past. Plus, my long distant relative Kyle Friend is competing, as you saw there at the bottom.
I did see that.
So, you know, and it'll be cool. I'm pretty, like I said, I'm pretty excited about this. I've been excited about it for a few months since Stephanie's told me that they were going to be doing it. I tried to put out a few things over the summer to encourage people to sign up. So they've gotten some good registration numbers here, and it should be a fun weekend. It'll be, you know, again, a very different environment than Utah or Finland. It's catering to a different audience. And the other thing that I think is really commendable and worth mentioning, aside from the fact that they put on a good competition, is that they are really aware of and sensitive to 2 things that are much more real life than competing, which is that for kids to compete in anything, the parents have to be involved at a high degree, and they have an opportunity on one of the evenings for the parents to get together and have a conversation about what it's like to support, you know, a high-level competitive teenage athlete in this sport. The kids will have something else to do during that time that's also very fun for them. And then, you know, the second thing is just the mental health. Like, you know, they're very much aware of the fact that this can be a very stressful thing to do, with the training, the competing. Sometimes, like, you listen to athletes, you know, you can talk about even the best in the world. It's like the Matt Frasers when he finished competing and all the things that he set aside to do that. Well, even at this level, they're passing up on hanging out with their friends. They're passing up on some opportunities. And there's people have different perspectives about that. Not everyone thinks that competing in this sport at a young age is the healthiest thing to do. But I think, and I think Stephanie and Brock think the same, is that it can be. You just have to create an environment that's appropriate for it. And kind of like I was talking about with Chloe and athletes who are trying to make that next level, just because you're committed to the pursuit of something like this doesn't mean that you can't have other things present in your life. You know, and it's an interesting, it is quite frankly an interesting topic. But, you know, Ben Bergeron is famous for talking about the fact that to be the best in the world at something, you cannot have balance in your life. And I fully understand what he's saying when he says that, but I also think that based on a lot of experience that I have interacting with athletes at a lot of different stages of excellence in this sport, that's not entirely true. And I look at a guy, you know, I can look at a guy like Jason Hopper, who said he left all of his community to go and train in an independent, isolated environment, and he didn't have the success this year that he wanted to have. He's gone back home. He's still training hard, but you see him now posting on Instagram that he's playing mini golf with his buddies. He's playing Monopoly Deal with his friends, you know. And those, like, you can still do some things like that and be great in this sport or pursue the level of competition you want to have in this sport. Stephanie and Brock, they have created an environment there that is great in terms of competition, but also offers resources and support in terms of, you know, that framing what that means from the mental, emotional side for the kids and young adults.
I think, Brian, what you'll notice there, and this is why I kick myself in the butt because I can't make it. I had so much fun, is that it has like a camp environment, like a summer camp environment to it. I think they purposely try to do that, and all the kids there are so supportive. And I've seen friendships. Like the first year I was there, Mal O'Brien was there, and at the time everyone was like, she was a unicorn. But you got to see her interact with fellow teens, and she developed friendships that at the Pit Teen Fitness that she still carries to this day. Like her best friends she met at the Pit Teen Fitness, and that's the type of stuff you're going to see in the interaction. You're also going to see the parents involved in, and how passionate they are, how proud they are of their athletes there, and I hope that the community comes out. They do a pretty good job of getting the local community out there, but if you're in the area, definitely come out there. And it seems like this year they got Caden Hogan competing. Those who don't know Caden, he finished, I believe, second at the games in his last year
It
at the
was
division.
third.
Third, that's what it was.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. But Caden is someone he's been an up and comer. He's been a multiple teen athlete. This is basically his last teen competition before he ages out. And then that guy goes back to what we're talking about the collegiate division. He's obviously, I think he's still going to do Wadapalooza. I think he has one more year to compete as a teen in Wadapalooza. I think they extend that to 18, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fourth place at the games.
Yeah, that's at fourth place. And then on the women's side, Hayes Willard, she's from Illinois. She's almost kind of a local. I know her coach really well. She's a games athlete. Delia, she started off as I think her first competition was there at the Pit Teen as a 14-year-old, and it's kind of neat just kind of seeing her progress. And she's come. I think she's come back every year. And there's some impressive women. I mean, we actually have some international individuals here as well.
Awesome.
So
we had some other ones.
Yeah. I remember the first year they had 3 representatives from Mexico. So and that was during COVID, and they traveled from Mexico to compete in this. And then another thing is this we're looking at the varsity division, which is basically like the RX elite division for the teens, but they also have other divisions outside of this, and they're catering to teenagers that'll be the first competition ever, and they're not throwing them to the wolves. They're just trying to make a friendly environment for them to compete in.
Yeah, it's a JV division. It's they'll have less workouts, less high skill, less heavy weights, but they're an opportunity to go out there and compete against their peers in a setting that is very supportive of them. So I think that they're doing a good job of kind of expanding and creating opportunities for more and more kids in that range, 14 to 22 this year, that have interest in competing in this sport, or at least to go there and find out how interested they are in competing in this sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I think you're going to really enjoy yourself there. It's a very good competition. It's an opportunity to kind of see the future now. If you look at the alumni that have come through this competition, it reads like a who's who. Again, you've had Olivia Kerstetter, Tudor Magda, Mal O'Brien from the first competitions. And what we just discussed before, Ava George won that basically last year, which was the collegiate division. She won that last year, and a year later, she's competing against a potential games athlete, like someone with a great resume like Chloe Wilson. So, it's the future of the sport. And I think that's awesome that you get to see that. And I can't wait to hear the broadcast and you and Joel on it. So anything else you want to say on that competition?
No, more obviously to come this week, but just wanted to let you guys know that we'll be out there and that I am both impressed and excited to be a part of what they're doing in Michigan this weekend. Maybe 5 to 10 more minutes, Patrick.
Definitely. Okay, we'll cover this really quick then. The invites were sent out for Dubai. And this is obviously a competition that you've been involved with for many years, and you're going to be involved with this year. But we'll take a look real quick at now. Again, these are the people that received invites. We don't know. Some of them have confirmed, but we don't know who. But this is what I've found so far. It's obviously the big names are Roman, Ricky, and Chandler, and a host of games athletes after that.
Yeah, so Dubai changes their qualification or invite process, regularly. This last year it was all qualifiers. This year it's all invites. So you kind of never know what you're going to get in that regard. But it's a honor for a lot of the athletes to get an invite, and it is an invite only competition this year. I know that they invited all of the top 12 finishers from last year, unless they knew that they were already committed to another competition that's going on that weekend. Mm-hmm. And so some of those athletes are from that caliber. They also have a lot of loyalty to athletes who have been participants with them in the past. So some of those names on there are because of that. And then they also have an interest in They reached out to some athletes that aren't on this list that were unable to make it from different parts of the world, but they like to have some international presence. So you see Kaique Cervini there, obviously from Brazil. They like to try to get some of the young blood. You see that they have Victor Hoffer. It does end up being a lot of Europeans just because those are the guys that can often make the trip, or the girls that can often make the trip. But they reached out to athletes from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Brazil, and some of them just said it was too expensive or too far, or they were doing other competitions, obviously down under classics right before that. Fit Fest is happening the same weekend. I think some athletes are waiting to see what happens with the road qualifiers because they're not sure if they want to do, again, there's Madrid, there's Rogue, there's Dubai, there's Fit Fest, there's Down Under, there's Wodapalooza. Top level athletes in the sport have to make decisions, and they can't all compete at all of these things. But Dubai will draw obviously a great list of names either way, and many of them here. I think they have to August 30th to make a decision, and then there'll be a second round of invites after that. And I've seen some of the guys on the second round of invites, especially in the men's division, and it doesn't get any less impressive.
Yeah. And I will say, like, just looking at the stories that got posted by some of these athletes, that Roman has already put down "see you in December." Same with Ricky, and same as Chandler. So those probably aren't verbal confirmations, but they're pretty close to them. So, and then you also have Jorge and Joshua Alchava from the Invictus team. So this is their first foray into the individual.
Jukic brothers, I think, both said that they're excited to compete again there.
Yeah. Switching over to the women's side. This is not a complete list. It's just what I've been able to resource, but still an impressive list. So we have athletes like Matilda Garns, Manon, who are kind of veterans to not only Dubai but also to the game, Sahara as well. Jacqueline Dahlstrom, obviously Karen Freyova. Yep. So she actually, when the first time you saw her was there at Dubai. So.
Yeah, in 2019 is when she really caught my attention as being someone to take note of. That year, she was in the mix to potentially win, along with Sam Briggs, Jamie Simmons, or Green, and Sarah Sigmund's daughter. She won pretty handily last year. So hopefully she'll be coming back. And yeah, you got I love that Camilla Solomon-Helman got an invite. She obviously was at semifinals this year, but she'd given birth the year before that. But she's always been a supporter of Dubai. That's one of the loyalty types of invites that they go out. Same thing with Hannah Karls. Well, she was in the top 12 last year, but those athletes from Sweden have often made the trip down there, so get a little love there. And again, there will be some people who are unable to make it or deny their invite, and then there'll be a second round going out sometime in the next week or two.
Yeah, so we'll definitely keep our eye on that. We'll let you go. Obviously, you're heading to Chicago, but I think this week what we'll probably do is we should have the results of the Rogue Invitational qualifier. Maybe we can preview that or recap that, and then we can also talk about your all-time list that will come out this week. So, and if you also today, make sure you check out today. We have posted basically Brian's journal from Finland, the first leg of the tour. I will put a link up on our story. The story's already out there. Go ahead, take a read for it. Brian's going to do another one for this past weekend at the Iron Games as well. But we have a couple more shows, one more show this week, and some other cool stuff coming out this week. Brian, anything you want to say before we sign off here?
Yeah. Clip this next part for Instagram later.
Okay, gotcha.
No, what Patrick was referring to is that I've updated my all-time rankings for the men and women following the 2023 CrossFit Games. This year, I'm expanding it to 40. So these will be, again, it's my personal opinion and assessment of all of the CrossFit Games competitors from the beginning all the way through until this year, 1 through 40. There's several new additions to the list, several athletes who've moved up the lifts based on their performances in 2023. It's a fun thing to do. It's obviously difficult to balance different eras, but I try to do my best to represent how impressive it is. Athletes who've had long careers, athletes who've had short but very excellent careers, and try to filter them all out. So those should be coming out this week, and then we'll have an opportunity to talk about them as well.
I can't wait to do that. And of course, we'll also do another recap show of the Pit Teen Fitness. Can't wait to hear that. Can't wait to watch the broadcast. Again, you can always support us on our Patreon. We have new tiers, which include we're finalizing design for a t-shirt exclusive for our Patreon subscribers, depending on what tier you are. We are also in talks with some other cool stuff that is also included with tiers. We're going to work with Wad Zombie on something that would be really cool and exclusive to those people on the people on the Patreon. So do us a favor, help us support us on our Patreon, and yeah, as always, be friendly, our friend.